On May the 4th, we were subjected to quite a wild thunderstorm, and a lot of rain came down in the Okanagan, and especially here in the South Okanagan. And when rains like that come at times when we're already experiencing the beginnings of freshet, that can lead to flooding. And when we get flooding, residents are always asking us for help with sand and sandbagging. So we have, over the last few days, made sure that all of the communities in the regional district have been informed and have had sand delivered and sandbags. And if you check our website, you'll be able to keep up to date on where those locations are. One of the questions I get most often is, how do you fill a sandbag? Do they come full? Well, sandbags don't come full, and you have to fill them yourself. So we're going to go through a very short demonstration on sandbagging and how there are two techniques to laying sandbags, and again, this information is also on our website. When you go to the location to pick up your sandbags, you're going to see that they're in little sheafs, and we will look at the sheafs now, and you can see that they are tied up, and this little bundle, as small as it may seem, can hold up to 50 sandbags. So 50 sandbags full of sand is going to be awfully heavy. Depending on the dampness of the sand, they can weigh anywhere between 30 and 50 pounds when they're full. So the technique for filling sandbags is quite simple. Always good to have two people. And roll the edge of the sandbag back, leave it open, hold it, and let your partner start filling with sand. It's advisable only to fill the sandbag about 2/3 full. And then you have two options for laying that sandbag down. You either have a tie, which is attached to each one of the sandbags, so you can tie it off, or while you're laying the sandbags out, if the direction of the flow is coming beside you, then you can fold back the edge of the sandbag and not tie it at all, making sure that you place the next sandbag over top of the fold, ensuring that the fold is away from the flow of water. It's always a good idea between layers to stamp on the sandbags. That evens them out and gives you a very good placement. All through the weekend and through the next few weeks while freshet is moving through, the RDOS will continue to maintain the sandbag locations and piles of sand. We're working with all of the different municipalities within the region and our First Nations partners. Flash floods and flooding can happen at any time of the year, but here in the South Okanagan, we always have a bit of flooding during freshet, and that's the time of the year when the snowmelt comes off the mountains and refills and recharges the lakes and the creeks and rivers for the summer. This generally happens in June, but there are years that it can be spanned anywhere from mid-April right through to July. And when we are in an area that is prone to flooding, there are some very important things that we need to keep in mind as residents and property owners. It's always advisable to have a kit in your home that will basically give you the dependency on yourselves for 72 hours. As we've recently found that those that have been isolated by road washouts have been able to stay what we call in place while they wait for the road repair to take effect. And when you have a kit that lasts for 72 hours, one must think about all of the people in the home. How many people? How many pets? So anyone with a compromised immune system or needing medication, it's always good to have an up-to-date list of prescriptions and be able to get them filled when the weather warnings or alerts are issued. On our website, you will be able to find under the flooding tab some very important tips and information on what to have on hand. These would include good old-fashioned flashlights and batteries. They include having 4 liters of water per person per day for 72 hours. Also having some in-date canned food and making sure that you have food and areas that are safe for your pets. Again, go to the RDOS website, lots of very important information and links to how and to put those kits together. Also in times of disaster or in times when we have had severe flooding, the province will allow a disaster financial assistance program for those folks that are unable to get flood insurance. All of that information is available on our website as well. It will always be under the flood tab Or in times like this, where we are experiencing flood, they will be right on the front page. And they will take you right through to the provincial ministry site where you can download all of the information for eligibility and application. During any times of flood, we will always ensure to keep the communities up to date with where sand and sandbags are so that they can keep their homes safe. In the event of any emergency, whether it be flood or fire, it's always good to have a secondary source of contact, preferably a relative or a friend that is out of the area, so that if something does happen in your region, then you can always call out and confirm with your relatives that you're safe, and that can sometimes help us to locate and make sure that we know who is where in the event of a road washout or if a community is stranded by a flood. If we do issue an evacuation order, then we always suggest that people check in with the evacuation center. That is regardless of whether you are going to take advantage of the evacuation center and the ability for them to put you up in hotels and provide food. If you're going to stay at a friend, absolutely, check in with us. Just let us know that you and your pets are safe. In the event of a flood or an emergency, there are also many other agencies that come to our aid, whether that be Penticton Search and Rescue, the ambulance service, the RCMP, and DART, the folks that will come in and help to evacuate your animals. This was well evidenced in the 2003 fires and just most recently in the Oliver fire. So again, having a look on our website, keeping yourself safe, building a kit for a 72-hour availability to remain in place, or we call shelter in place, is always advisable.
When we discover imminent danger in spring freshets or any type of an event that's going to cause harm to communities and or people or their homes, we go through a series of processes that determines what level of response that we can expect people to respond to. One of the first ones is a evacuation alert. What that basically means is that we would like you to be ready to go at a moment's notice, but it does give you an opportunity to pack a bag, grab some valuables, get your pets on a short leash, and get everything ready to go so you can just take off and go when you're asked to do so. Versus doing a evacuation order, that's when you need to go and go now. So lots of times you don't necessarily get a chance to even pack a toothbrush. So that's why it's really important, if you're on either one, if you're evacuated and you need to go to a reception center so that we as emergency responders know where you are, and you have to register so we can get a hold of you and know how to contact you. We can also place you in places to live to stay safe, whether it's going to be group lodging, individual hotel rooms, or of the like. If you've got other places to stay, then that works as well. We try to use our website to the best of our ability to make sure that we inform our folks in the residences. We also try to get out to the media, and whether it's going to be social media types with Twitter or Facebook, we try to get the word out to everybody. At the end of the day, if you're on an evacuation order and you try to go home and there's somebody saying you can't go there, that's a real good indication that you're under an order. But they will give you information as to where to report to get more information and to figure out how you're going to survive the next couple of days. In the South Okanagan of Okanagan Similkameen, we already had experienced some flooding in the February, believe it or not. And then I thought for sure it was done. I thought we were done, and then all of a sudden we started seeing some flooding going over. What normally happens in this region is that usually around April to March or April, we start seeing the flooding happening, and then we go for flooding. The flooding moves from the Similkameen Valley, starts to head north up the Okanagan Valley, and then there start the fires that start in the Similkameen Valley, and they follow that all the way up. We usually end up with that pattern going all the way. That pattern goes in, it's like a wave, and it goes all the way up. This year is different. This year is really different. We're seeing more water. We're seeing it come faster, harder. All the creeks are spilling over. The debris from the sides of the creeks that are normally sit on the side, but because there's so much more water, it's picking that debris up and it's clogging all of the culverts that it needs to in the flow process, and that's causing some headache and some problems with it. Whether it's an order or an alert, we notify the RCMP. They will activate the search and rescue team or bring in a team, or they'll just do it themselves if there's not very many on the order or the alert. They'll do a door-to-door process. They do a door-to-door process. They give you an information package of where you can go, why you're being asked to leave, and all of that sort. Now, the current law states very clearly that if you're over the age of majority or over the age of 18, it's your choice as to whether you want to leave your home. But if you're under the age of 18, you don't have a choice. Well, the children don't have a choice. You either take your children with safety for their sake, or they will be taken to safety for their sake. So it's always best that everybody cooperates and do as they're being asked to do in the best interest of public safety. I think it's really important that, and we've probably said this, and you can't say it enough, is that if you've put sandbagging in place to protect your property, don't remove it yet. We're not out of the woodworks or out of the water yet. We have to keep that in place so that we can continue with it. Otherwise, you may find yourself with some wet feet without the protection. So, when we're in the middle of spring freshet, in the beginning right through to the end of spring freshet, we always want to be aware of what our culverts and what our condition of our creeks are. So we want to make sure that if they're overflowing, if they're starting to erode, starting to take dirt with them, those are things that you should maybe make note of and try to tell somebody or try to get that message out so that A, it's going to be safer and we're not going to start ripping apart some infrastructure that's really vital because as you know, lots of things are being buried underground now and we want to make sure that they stay there. Always watch for that extra flow of water and keep kids and pets back from that flowing water. I was reading an information safety bulletin that said that only 6 inches of water, fast moving water, 6 inches deep, will take a full-grown adult and send them on their way. And if it's 2 feet deep, that is going to be enough currents there to move a car, including an SUV.
When we get rain in the Okanagan, and the southern Okanagan is no exception, it will often take between 7 to 18 hours for water that hits the top of the mountains to work its way down through the creeks and the streams into the lowlands. So sometimes people will get complacent because they'll see the rain and they'll see no immediate change. But there is a time lapse with that, and we could very well see waters rising consistently over the weekend or a time frame after a major rainfall. Therefore, what is happening up in the North Okanagan will slowly begin to affect us as it moves down through the main stem lakes. We're very fortunate to have dam operation and moderation of those waters all the way from Vernon right through to Osoyoos, but that's a very delicate balancing act, and we all need to be cognizant that when it rains hard at this time of year, not to disregard it, but to think about the next day, to look around your property and make sure that anything that's in a low-lying area that is removed, valuable or machinery that may have oils or toxins. And if you have on-property culverts, before freshet happens is a really good opportunity for you to go in and look at that infrastructure and make sure it's not full of last year's sediment. Make sure that some of the debris that's fallen during the course of the year hasn't worked its way down to that culvert. Keeping culverts clear is a huge benefit to your community, not just for yourself, but your neighbors as well. And in the time of year where flooding, or further on in the season when there is threat of fire, it's really appreciated by those of us in the emergency center and in those agencies that you reach out to your neighbors and make sure that they're safe, especially at this time when people may be stranded without the ability to get out for their prescriptions, or the elderly or those with mobility issues that aren't able to get their groceries. And if we all do this and we all work together, then these types of occurrences that run through annually run much smoother.